Hello and welcome to Beyond the Scale, Weight Loss and Wellness. I'm your host, Coach Monica. I'm joined today by Coach Darcy, and we are here to guide you through the ins and outs of a lifestyle that's transformed not just our lives, but the lives of countless women navigating the waves of perimenopause and menopause. Whether you're here to shed weight, understand your body better, or simply find a community that gets it, you're in the right place. So sit back and enjoy the next few minutes as we tackle the hot issues of today. Welcome to Beyond the Scale, where we explore the deeper aspects of weight loss and wellness. This week, we are diving into the heart of emotional eating. It's more than just about food. It's about our emotions and how they profoundly influence our eating habits. We're going to discover how to finally break free from emotional eating and build a healthier, more mindful relationship with food. In this episode, we are going to unpack the essence of emotional eating. What is emotional eating and how does it differ from physical hunger? We're going to learn to identify our triggers. We're going to practice advice on how to recognize the emotional triggers that lead to emotional eating. And finally, we're going to break out the strategies to break this cycle once and for all. I'm joined today by Coach Darcy, the amazing Coach Darcy, and we're going to tackle a really tough subject today, Darcy. Are you ready for this?
I am halfway ready, but I'm all in. This is what has to happen.
It has to, because a lot of people join a podcast and they think, oh, I'm just going to put it on the back burner. I'm going to listen to this, behind the scenes, and maybe it'll apply to me. Maybe it won't apply to me. I can guarantee you that this topic will apply to everybody. So nobody gets a pass. So if you are one of those who are like half listening, you might want to put us on pause, go get a cup of coffee. You may need some Kleenexes and a journal, and let's see how this thing applies to us, not only our daily eating journey, but our whole journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're going to start us off, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm going to begin with a couple pinpoints, two main points of what the essence of emotional eating is. And like you said, just because you think you're not an emotional eater right now, doesn't mean that you shouldn't stick around. So I'm going to challenge you to also stay with us. And because I too, in my beginning of my journey, I did not believe I was an emotional eater. I thought my coach was crazy and like, oh, you're just generalizing everybody to be an emotional eater. And let me tell you, that's not the case.
No.
So to begin, we're going to define the differences between our natural hunger and emotional hunger. So we're natural physical hunger is when you gradually increase that hunger that's just screaming at you, and it can just be satisfied with any food. So it's like the gradual, and then
right.
yes. And then the emotional hunger is when individuals eat in response to feelings rather than hunger. Keyword feelings versus natural. So
it hits you.
Unlike
it hits you, boom, suddenly.
Yes, it does. Yep.
Totally.
And unlike physical hunger, emotional hunger feels sudden and craves specific comfort foods. And I'm going to ask our listeners, do you find yourself at the end of a long working day, after you've eaten dinner, sitting in front of the TV, or like however you decide to wind down for the night, needing to have some chips or popcorn, or mine in my case was ice cream, just to kind of like finish the day? To me, like, that is emotional eating.
It is, totally.
It is.
Yeah.
And that is often leads to eating when we're not hungry because we just had a full meal, and or continuing to eat past that fullness mark, which doesn't end with physical hunger. Those are different.
Right.
So the roll through the emotions, I'm going to go through that a little bit. And I'm going to explain my journey just for a snippet. Through my journey, and as I have been coaching, I have seen how emotional eating is often a coping mechanism.
Mm.
If for dealing with difficult emotions like stress, sadness, and boredom, and usually like winding down at the end of the day. So um, they often occur as an in between snacks or even shortly after a full meal. Now, again, emotional eating can happen at any part of the day, but this is like your typical time that I've noticed over the years of checking macros, just that typical data that I've collected. That's usually the when people decide to do this. Now, disclaimer: this isn't always the case because you know it could have been that situation where you just had a terrible day of eating and you were actually hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that disclaimer. Emotional eating is temporary. Like it's like a band-aid. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I would like to have figuratively thinking of. What do band-aids do? If you get scratched, it's just going to cover the wound. It's not going to heal it, but it's just going to be a temporary fix. And so it's going to soothe the emotions, but it doesn't address the underlying issues.
Mm-hmm.
And this leads you to a cycle that can impact health and your well-being. But then also creating habits, some deeper habits. When you continue to do this over and over, that is something that's going to start to form. And as for me, as I was sharing before, I didn't feel like I was an emotional eater because I was happy. I was happy all the time. Forgetting that I wore a lot of masks, and we are not going to go into that in this segment, but I wore a lot of masks, so I pretended for the most part to be happy and content. But the underlying issue here is it's it was not uh, that type of emotion that was triggering for me
Mm-hmm.
until um, the evening hit.
Ooh, the evening. That is a lot of people too.
Yes.
Whew. Yeah.
And the snacks at night, just like
Mm-hmm.
I explained at the beginning. The evening hit, I was tired and exhausted. So just because I wasn't emotional, like feeling sad and blue and depressed, I was worn out. I was
Mm-hmm.
stressed. I had these other emotions that I did not categorize as, emotional eating emotions.
Mm-hmm.
um, so between the snacks at night and then my other one I'm going to add is girls' night. That was my
Ooh.
excuse. That
Yeah.
that FOMO. I didn't want to miss out on what they were enjoying and indulging in. I deserved that time away from my family. I deserved that time to have fun. So I had that FOMO, and I would indulge
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of things. So, and I was again usually at night, but 220 pounds, I created this problem in my gut where I didn't my leptin did not
It
that
didn't work.
leptin hormone did not work
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So I could eat even if I had a very large meal, there was still room for that ice cream, still room for my kids candy. There was just so much that I could continue to eat. So then how did I learn that I had this problem of emotional eating? Well, it all began when I started to collect the data, meaning tracking and my journaling.
Mm-hmm.
Things started to form in the midst of my journey in my lifestyle change in your program that I was taking. That I was like, oh, what? I think I have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Monica, did you ever have that aha moment of feeling like there was like that I think I have a problem in the emotion department.
Yeah.
With
Yeah. And I did have that. And I remember actually as we're talking about this, I can smell it. So because here's the thing about emotional eating. There are three things it can be. It can be good, bad, or neutral. So just because we're talking about, and this will lead into my example here, but just because we're talking about emotional eating problems. It doesn't necessarily mean this is a bad or negative thing. So it can be good. There can be good, and that's where mine comes in. Is I can walk into Grammy's house and smell her front porch, and it doesn't even smell like food. It smelled like that, the mothballs. It smelled like this beautiful representation of my grandma. And when I walked into her porch, I knew we were going to have this amazing meal and this amazing family time. And so for me, I get to talk about triggers after we come back from the break. And that is a trigger for me, is the smell of her porch. Now, that's a good thing. Going to Grammy's house is a great, good memory. It's a core memory, right? But it brings on some emotions for me. It brings on some emotional eating. Your emotional eating could be negative. It could be something that was in the past with some trauma, with some things that, some bad, dark stress. So emotional eating can be bad, and then it can be neutral. An example of emotional eating because of neutrality is it's 12 o'clock. It's noon. We always eat lunch at this time. And so we emotionally eat because it's noon. That's neutral. It's neither good nor bad. And so sometimes it's really, really important for us to recognize, okay, like Darcy said, I'm putting this out on my journal. May not be good, bad, or neutral. It could be something that you just need to mindfully acknowledge, which will be the third segment that we talk about when we talk about how to get through these emotional eating habits through mindful eating. So when we come back, I get to tackle the subject of triggers and how triggers impact our emotional eating. So as we're speaking, as we're talking, I kind of want you guys you ladies, to put yourself into our stories, into these scenarios. As we talk about, the definitions of emotional eating, something may be triggered in your head like, oh, that's me, or oh gosh, that's me, or yeah, that's me. I am this way, because just because we're eating something emotionally doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it is good to have some mindful eating. So we will be back in just a few seconds to talk about the triggers and identifying the emotional eating triggers. Are you tired of those pounds that just won't come off? Are you ready for a real change? Dive into KM Health Coaching's signature weight loss program and start transforming your relationship with food and your body today. In just 3 months, you can shed those stubborn pounds and break free from emotional eating. With personalized coaching, a supportive community, and our breakthrough technology, you're set for success. Imagine weekly sessions tailored just for you, a group system where you can grow together, and technology that tracks every triumph. It's all here at KM Health Coaching. Now, exclusively for Beyond the Scale listeners, use code Beyond the Scale for $25 off. Start your journey to healing and happiness right now. Visit us, use the code Beyond the Scale, and embark on your wellness journey with KM Health Coaching's signature weight loss program. Your new beginning starts right now. All right, welcome back. Did you enjoy that commercial, Darcy?
I did. I love the spinning fruit, but they can't see
They
that.
can't see that. Yeah.
But
yeah.
there's some spinning fruit that I was mesmerized by.
It's really, it's totally cool.
It's cute.
But yeah, if you are struggling in your weight loss journey and you need help, that's what Coach Darcy and I have a passion to do. So make sure that you check out the website, and don't forget, if you are ready to, to pull the trigger and say, oh gosh, I need a coach, don't forget that really cool coupon code, because that will save you some money. So we're going to go into a section here that's kind of going to morph into our third section, and that is how we identify triggers. So the definition of a trigger is something, it's kind of subjective, because it can be a person, place, or thing. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. We all have our own triggers. Some of them can be good, some of them can be bad, some of them can be just flat out annoying. An annoying trigger for me is the TV at about 8 o'clock at night, because in our old lifestyle that we used to live, we used to eat in front of the TV at night. That was a comforting thing for us. And so sometimes it can be a physical thing like a television. Sometimes a trigger could be a thing like a movie theater. You walk into the theater and you smell, the popcorn and all of the, the enjoyment that we used to have when we went into the movie and just kind of gorged ourselves with the unlimited popcorn with the butter, all of those things that can be triggering. For some people, it could be stress. It could be people. You could have somebody, be having this most amazing day, and the person that you have the most annoyance with comes into your life and says, ta-da, here I am. And you are triggered. And your first thought is, man, I would just feel better if I could pick up this candy bar. I could feel better. It could be your schedule. Quite honestly, Darcy, just so you heads up, think about some of your triggers that you have, because mine is crazily as it is. I get triggered by stress. When I am working with the media or when I'm working with a really stressful policy situation, my pulse starts to spike, and I start to the last situation that I went through, we were working on a policy situation, and I remember standing over my counter as I was in an intense policy, I was speaking with a politician, I was working on some language in this bill, and I remember looking down at my hand and seeing a spoon in the peanut butter. I'm like, oh my gosh, that stress factor was a trigger for me to pick up that spoon. And I caught myself and I realized, my gosh, that's a trigger, right?
Yes.
Do you have any triggers that you can think of that really are loud to you?
Yeah, and it usually starts when my schedule is way overwhelmingly packed, and
Yeah.
I start to panic too.
Yeah.
And another one would be probably things like Christmas parties,
Mm.
because you get a fear of missing out, or like those nice sit down, classy dinner meals
Mm-hmm.
for a work party or something like that.
Yeah.
Those are the times when they have that bar of just amazing food, and you know that you're not hungry. You
Mm-hmm.
just ate a large meal that was fulfilling,
Mm-hmm.
and now everybody's eating the desserts around you.
Yeah.
So those are some emotional triggers. I'm like, I just want to join them. Like, why
Yeah.
can I not join them?
Yeah.
So those are mine.
Do you want to know a really cool, well, you know this because we use it with our clients every day, but a really cool test to decide, is this physical hunger or is this emotional eating? Okay.
Yeah.
Now I've got two side conversations when it comes to this, because like I said, emotional eating is not always bad, right? Just because you're feeling things, we need to not underestimate the power of that. And we need to be very, very careful not to bring shame and guilt into emotional eating, right? But here's a way we teach our clients to tell, is this physical hunger or is this emotional eating? And I literally did it just this week with a client. I will say, okay, this client comes to me and says, Monica, I'm just hungry. I just know I'm hungry. And I say, okay, you may entirely possibly be hungry. Here's how you tell. Go to the countertop, go to your cabinet. Mine's a corner cabinet, so I can see it right now. Go to your corner cabinet, pull out a can of green beans. Open that can of green beans up. If you can eat that can of green beans, you are physically hungry, right?
Right.
If you can't, now, come on, there's people who don't like green beans. Use the food of choice, similar to green beans. If you can't, then is it a possibility that you have emotional eating? And here's the other thing I tell my clients. It's not bad if you have emotional eating. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, I do know it's emotional eating, but I'm going to eat this can of green beans anyway, right? Because they're not high calories, and I'm going to put some butter on it. I'm going to put some everything but the bagel seasoning on it. I'm going to have those green beans. But that's a really fun way to tell, okay, is this emotional eating or is this hunger, right?
Right.
So what we want you to be able to do is we want you to reflect on your patterns, okay? And this is where Darcy's journaling comes in. And you can mental journal, you can sticky note journal. You can journal however you want. I particularly like the TJ Maxx form of journaling because they have the most amazing journals that are possible. I love it. I love getting myself a new journal. But the point of that is we need you to recognize your patterns. When do you reach for food? Is it during times of stress when you're feeling lonely? Another one of my triggers is Sunday night when I open my client schedule for Monday. I kind of freeze because Monday is my crazy coaching day. I kind of freeze at that point. Like, oh my gosh, the week has started. Oh, that's when I think, oh, I need some almonds. Oh, I need, I never am tempted to go off plan, but I do. I am tempted to put things in my mouth. So, keeping a food and mood journal will help you determine these times. Also, maybe Darcy, you're going to speak into this, but sometimes emotional eating can connect with our hormones and our monthly cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had experiences with your clients who, may have run into that? And what do you tell them to do during that?
So absolutely. When you are tracking your cycle, that you have to do that in order to know how your body is responding to certain things, even stress. Like if you're extra tense, you probably might be nearing that PMS phase.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that during that week, you got to give yourself a lot of grace, because not only through your food choices and your extra hunger moments, you're also going to not, if you're exercising, you might feel weak because you've been working out, 5 days a week. And then all of a sudden you get to the certain week and you're like, I've been lifting 20 pounds and now I can only lift 5. And then you just are giving yourself a lot of negative things. But during that time, we do have that program where we talk about, raising up your carbs a little bit during that week. There's certain higher carbs that you can feed for your hormones, but I encourage more of the keto friendly type of carbs versus going off the charts with whatever you want to eat. So that's kind of the start of that.
So what you're saying is you tell your clients, your female clients, okay, when you're feeling that, it's not the end of the world. Don't panic.
Yeah, right.
You maybe sometimes have to feed those hormones a little bit and understand that emotional eating during that portion doesn't mean they're broken. It doesn't mean, they're off plan.
Right.
It's okay. It's a neutral thing.
Grace.
Your body is asking for certain things.
Yes.
And sometimes, for example, when our body is lacking magnesium, sometimes you crave chocolate. So that's why the mindful eating practices come in full swing of knowing your body, knowing and being honest. So many times, especially when we've gone on the diet circles up and down, we lie to ourselves when it comes to the reality of what is going on in the present moment, right? We lie to ourselves and we say, oh, I can handle anything. Well, no, you've got some real things going on. We've got to be mindful of where we are, be honest where we are, know when our bar is lowered and we are more apt to cave into emotional eating, because there are times that we've got to be strong. We've got to white knuckle it, is what I call it. Sometimes during that emotional eating, when we're wanting to tackle breaking that emotional eating addiction, we got to white knuckle it and we got to say, a tough love, sister, no, I'm going to stop. Because each time you do that, it gets easier and easier and easier to abstain and to be, apart from, falling prey to the emotional eating. So knowing and being honest with ourselves, being mindful, knowing exactly where we are in our cycles. Mindful eating is a practice. It involves paying full attention to the experience of eating, drinking, both inside and outside the body. I want my clients to notice the colors, the smells, the textures, the flavors, the temperatures, even the sounds of their food. When they are mindfully eating, number one, they're enjoying their food, right? So many times that we're gulping food down, we don't enjoy it. But when you're mindfully eating, you're experiencing that food experience, right? And so listening to your body, listening to physical hunger cues, knowing that when your body is truly hungry versus it's full and I'm responding to my emotional triggers versus physical triggers. I sometimes liken physical hunger to waves. If you're at the beach, those waves are coming in, those waves get really, really tall and then they fall. Sometimes if you wait for those hunger cues and those physical hunger pains to fall, they go away for a while. In fact, those are tips and strategies we bring, to our clients who are fasting, right?
Right.
So going and knowing those hunger cues. Do you know, Darcy, how many times we actually are hungry? Have you noticed that since you've gotten control over your eating? Do you notice when your stomach growls now?
Yeah, I do. And it's not very often,
No,
actually.
it's not. It's
My
not.
mind's telling me more so that I'm hungry than my stomach is growling. So,
Right. Right.
yeah,
That is so true. That is so true. And a lot of times I tell my clients, you know what? Those hunger pains are not bad.
right.
We tend to think when we feel one of those pains, oh my gosh, we're dying. We are so dying. Sometimes it's good to feel that, and it's healthy to feel that. So, when we come back from this next break, we're going to talk together about the strategies, and knowing when to fight these things and when to go with it. When to say, you know what, I understand that this is emotional eating right now. I'm choosing to eat because we don't want to leave the impression that just because you eat when you're emotional means it's a bad thing. But being mindful about it and being on top of being in control over those thoughts and those emotions, that's where we win. And so we're going to talk about some strategies, how to break that cycle and how to get through those waves of emotions. Okay, we'll be right back. Are you tired of those pounds that just won't come off? Are you ready for a real change? Dive into KM Health Coaching's signature weight loss program and start transforming your relationship with food and your body today. In just 3 months, you can shed those stubborn pounds and break free from emotional eating. With personalized coaching, a supportive community, and our breakthrough technology, you're set for success. Imagine weekly sessions tailored just for you, a group system where you can grow together, and technology that tracks every triumph. It's all here at KM Health Coaching. Now, exclusively for Beyond the Scale listeners, use code Beyond the Scale for $25 off. Start your journey to healing and happiness right now. Visit us, use the code Beyond the Scale, and embark on your wellness journey with KM Health Coaching's signature weight loss program. Your new beginning starts right now. All right, welcome back. This is the fun part of the show. And this is where I'm going to put you on the spot, Darcy, because now we've got a list of things.
Yes.
And we're kind of done teaching a little bit. And so sometimes the teaching part stresses me out a little bit. But now we get to talk about the strategies to stop emotional eating and to heal your journey of why am I addicted to emotional eating? So I want you to start us off. We've got a whole list here of things. We may not get to all of them, but we're going to talk about most of them here. So let's start at the top and let's talk about these strategies on how we can break this emotional eating cycle. You want to go first?
Yeah. So the first one is to wait before you eat, which sounds crazy to me that why would you wait before you eat?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that moment when you have like that sudden urge. It's kind of like when you're getting ready to have that snack and you're like, oh, I really think I want the snack after, right after I had a meal. But it's that sudden urge when you want to eat. You wait for 10 minutes to see if the hunger is persistent.
Mm-hmm.
If it keeps coming and your stomach is growling, then you know that is your physical hunger versus your emotional hunger.
Yeah. How many times, I don't know if you've done this before, and this makes total sense. I mean, seeing the word 10 minutes here, how many times we have had the whole bag of chips gone, devoured within seconds. And what would have happened if we would have waited 10 minutes to that wave of what we think is physical hunger, wait 10 minutes and we wouldn't have that anymore, right? We wouldn't eat the whole bag of chips without even knowing what we did, right?
Absolutely.
I like this next one, being aware of the eating process. So paying attention to the act of eating. We take this for granted. The things that we have, that we get to eat on the ketogenic lifestyle, the savoriness, the taste buds that explode when we eat whole foods. When we pay attention to this act of eating, chewing slowly, savoring each bite, number one, this leads to improved digestion. Our gut isn't screaming at us when we slow down, but we also emotionally connect with that food. And there is much more satisfaction when you chew slowly and eat in smaller portions. Right?
Right. And on top of that, then I'm going to move. I'm skipping one.
Okay. All right. I'm with you.
I'm skipping one to
Oh,
hydration.
yes.
And as avid coffee drinkers, I'm pretty sure you and I were both raised, maybe we were given coffee in a
I
bottle.
think
I
so.
feel like
She
that may
rubbed
have
it on our
happened.
gums.
She did. But we prefer coffee
Mhm.
any day. But let me tell you that is not a great way to get hydrated. I mean, you can
Rats.
disagree with
I'm
me.
not. I'm disappointed.
It is. As much as I love coffee, the validation of drinking water, especially with I'm going to skip to another one with having some of electrolytes in with your water.
Yeah.
That is going to just trigger those happy hormones in your head.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, I want to compare. This is not about water, but this is a thing that I collected over one period of time of salted peanuts versus non-salted. If you just had plain roasted, if you were handed one of those, like which one are you going to go back for?
I'm going back to the salt.
The salted
Mhm.
ones. And usually when we are hungry, it's our body craving that salt
Mhm.
because we need a lot of that. We need the salt
Mhm.
in our body. Um and so that is just satisfying
Mhm.
all of that. And then when you hydrate with those electrolytes and you like have multi-purpose there, uh you sometimes feel like what you think is hunger is actually the thirst.
Mhm.
And so drinking water can also fill your stomach. And they say before a meal or during a meal, do not drink water during a meal
Mhm.
because you want to eat first and then fill your stomach up with the rest of the
Mhm.
liquids because you need that to
Yeah.
process. But that's the importance of, having that
Yeah.
water.
So hydrating will
So
help you
hydration.
stop the emotional eating. I'm going to go back to one that is called engaging all of the senses, and I'm going to combine this with a kind of a silly practice. And don't laugh at me when I tell you what I do. I always thought this was hokey pokey when I learned about this in my training. I'm like, oh, you guys are all just so silly. Kind of like I thought with you with your whole, your whole chemical fields and all of that. I'm like, oh, that's just hokey pokey. No, but
Genetically
no,
modified.
genetically modified, right? No, this is real. When you engage all of your senses. So, like I said, we live in a hurried society and we just shove things down our face and we don't enjoy it. And so, if we just engage all of our senses, what does this hamburger taste like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like as we're chewing it, right? When you engage all of your senses, your smell, your taste, your sight, all of those things, you're going to be more satisfied. Here's a silly thing that I do. Number one, this little exercise slows me down. As I look at this, maybe I watch too many hunting shows. My husband's a hunter, and I always think, oh, that poor deer. But now I've changed my attitude. I'm like, no, thank you. Thank the farmer for taking care of his crops to give us this amazing tasting vegetable on your plate. Thank that deer for giving his life, for the nourishment. I tend to have a thankful heart when it comes to eating. And it sounds so silly, but it's really not at the end of the day because it gives you an attitude of gratitude for your new energy that you have as you're filling your body with the amazing nourishment, right?
Yeah.
And the
Right.
deer gave his life, or the cow gave his life. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And
Right.
and I was watching this show called Alone. I don't know if you've ever seen it, where they drop them
Yes.
off.
I love that
Those
show.
people do that. They kill a squirrel and they're like, "Thank you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do that too." And it's not hokey pokey. It's real. So real.
Right.
Don't laugh at that
Right.
one.
No, no, no. So I know one thing that we find ourselves, but also our clients struggling with is um, not finding alternatives.
Mm.
So they're stuck in the same spot. Like I'm at my desk, you're at your desk
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And that is when, if you're sitting there, then the boredom kind of creeps in, even though you're doing
Mm-hmm.
things. You're just like, I need to snack while I'm doing this
Ooh,
motivation.
yeah.
So I encourage, people to go away from the situation, find a different alternative. You can have an emotional trigger, doing something like the mundane stuff. But then if you decide, okay, I'm finding myself wanting a snack, or like there's this box of chocolates beside my desk, I'm going to just get up, remove yourself from the situation,
Mm-hmm.
go for a walk, get the blood flowing again. Seek a non-food way to deal with
Mm-hmm.
that emotional hunger that's happening.
Yeah.
Um, and like even calling a friend,
Mm-hmm.
practicing what we call, or what we do as the deep box breathing, like
Yes.
to,
Explain how to box breathe.
so I believe my way is a little bit different than your way. Mine's not making a box. Mine's just like taking a deep breath, and you count it in 4 times in. You hold it for like as long as you can hold it, and then you slowly release that for at least 20 seconds, if not longer. And then you keep, and I guess that's
Yeah,
box
I
breathing,
just
I guess,
imagine a
right? And then
box.
you
I
do
do the same
it
thing.
times.
I just
Okay.
imagine a box. I deep breathe. I
Yeah.
breathe in for 7 seconds.
Yes.
I hold it for 7 seconds. I I exhale for 7 seconds, and I just imagine a box in that. And I
Okay.
don't know why 7 seconds, but that's how I was taught to do it. So yeah, it's
I
just
just stretch my
yeah.
lungs.
And by the time you're done, what that's doing is it's bringing oxygen to your brain. So you are
Yes.
thinking clearly, you are calm. And we tell our clients do this in times of stress. There may be times that you just got to stop and say, okay, I'm going to do 3 sets of box breaths. And it's just, and I think I use the box because it's 4 times. They say four
Yeah.
times in that cycle. And so, it's just, that's 4 sides of the square. So however you do it, bringing oxygen to your brain, plus that will pause you from that time that you are headed to the kitchen to go get that candy bar, right? So the box
Yes.
breathing it's an absolute treasure when it comes to this, as well as stress, right? When your kids are
Right.
driving you crazy, step in the bathroom, do some box breathing. So that's another one. Another here's supplemental. I guess we could talk supplements a little bit, and we're not doctors. We don't play one on the internet, and obviously you would have to check with your doctor for any of these tips and tricks. But there's some physical things, such as, and Darcy talked about the pink salt. When you put pink salt in your mouth, that sometimes takes away that craving. Brushing your teeth, putting that minty flavor in your mouth. If you just imagine how you felt when your mom said, here's some orange juice, now go brush your teeth, kind of thing. And how it just makes it so that you are like, oh my gosh, that's gross, yuck. So imagine orange juice and toothpaste. You're not going to go get that candy bar after you brush your teeth.
Right. That would be gross.
So, and the other thing that I'm finding, and this is relatively new to my protocol, but I love it, and that is making sure, number one, making sure we get all of our fats in. That's the secret
Mhm.
ingredient. That's the secret GLP-1 mechanism to our diet, right? But also including L-glutamine. That is a
Oh, yeah.
very understood method, but I use L-glutamine every day, and you always have to ask your doctor if that's something that they want you to do. But L-glutamine takes those cravings away. It makes me feel full. So I have that in my diet every single day. So there's some supplement things that you can do to help you through that. And of course, Darcy, do you want to end us up with the power of journaling? That is
Yes.
a big one.
I use this. I encourage my clients to use this. Um, it is a powerful tool to basically get the garbage that you keep in your head. That's like just create. I don't know. I think of a blob of slime that is just rolled around in every single different type of surface. As the kids play with it, it starts to collect
Yeah.
all this nasty stuff. And that is what your mind does. It
Yeah.
collects these things. That's the stress, the overwhelming thing that happened today, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, how you're feeling about this new lifestyle. All of these things can be super beneficial and help
Mm-hmm.
managing a lot of basically understanding how you work.
Mm-hmm.
It's collecting data on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see habits that are being formed. Okay, well, when I am stressed out, I know that I'm going to go have this popcorn. I know this is a habit that I've done. And so you journal about it. And it's
Yeah.
just going to help you get all of that muck out of your head onto a piece of paper. And trust me, you are going to feel amazing after you have placed all this
Mm-hmm.
on the sheet. You can either, even if you don't want to put it in your journal, you can write all this stuff down, how you're feeling. And you can uh you can have like a physical, like, wrinkle it up,
Mm-hmm. A
crumple it up
burn
into a
pile.
ball and throw it away,
Yeah.
or burn it up. And so then you do not have those lasting feels about all that stuff that's going on in your head. It's like
Yeah.
a release
Yeah.
of your
A healing
mind.
exercise.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And your kids, when you are dead, they won't go through and say, "Oh, mom." I always worry about that. I'm like, when I write in my journal, my kids are gonna not be able to unsee something. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's very wise to do a
You
burning
know,
ceremony.
it might be wise. You might learn something from it too.
Exactly. Exactly. Do not do what mom did.
Right.
So the last thing, and for me, it's one of the most important things. It's why you and I do what we do, Coach. It is the support system that we bring to our clients.
Mhm.
There are sometimes you can't do it alone. And one of the most valuable assets we have at KM Health Coaching is our group program, our group support program. Sometimes it has nothing to do with weight loss. Sometimes it has nothing to do with calories. It has nothing to do with the food we're eating. It has everything to do with what we're walking through in our journey together. And so creating a support system of, gosh, I know I'm an emotional eating addict. I know I have a problem with this, and now I need some people to walk with me. And that's why we coach. That's why we do what we do. That's why we give our lives to help people break the cycle of emotional eating addiction. I'm going to end the podcast today by talking about the difference between emotional eating and food addiction, because I think it's important to talk about this. And sometimes it's confused. So we're going to have an upcoming show, and I'm going to do the show on chemical food, processed food addiction. Processed food addiction and sugar addiction and emotional eating addiction can look a lot alike. And to be honest, the treatment is the same, but the timing is different. So when we have emotional eating addictions, sometimes that can be caused by trauma in the past. It can be caused by something rocking your world, because, like I said, some of it is good, some of it's neutral, some of it's really bad. And so the difference between the treatment of both of these is, number one, abstinence. We remove the drug, we remove the food, we put the processes in place to stop it, right? And then we talk about therapy. Therapy happens first with emotional eating addictions. Therapy happens second and last with chemically processed food addiction. Okay, so the treatment is the same, abstinence. Now, there is a possibility with an emotional eating addict that they will be able to moderate and they'll be able to bring some of those foods back. A chemically addicted person cannot. There's no moderation for a food addict. So that's always important to clarify when we're talking about, am I an emotional eater? Am I a food addict? And I have a screen. I am a licensed sugar specialist, and I have a specific tool that I use for chemically addicted people that are addicted to sugar. And then, like I said, the treatment is the same but different, if that makes any sense. So we want you to know that if you struggle with food addiction, with emotional eating addiction, if you struggle with that, there is hope, and there's freedom. Darcy, as you look at your journey, you've lost 70 pounds. I've lost 120. As you look at your journey, do you feel now different than when you felt at the beginning when it comes to emotional eating? How do you feel different if you have?
There is like in the last couple we did an episode, was it last episode, where we talked about the different seasons.
Yeah.
Um and I can see how I progressed when I was in my honeymoon phase. I didn't see myself having a problem. And then as I was going on through my journey, I still didn't have that in check. There I had the realization when I actually made it to my maintenance weight.
Mm.
Then I started letting the carb creep kind of come in, and I realized how I was depending on those handfuls of almonds or here and there's to cover the boredom that was happening. So in that phase, I've realized that I actually have an issue with food not super controlling for me. I have a different mindset, and not everybody is able to have that strength. But I know that I saw the problem and I nixed it. But if I keep unguarded, if I let that happen, that boredom come in, or my procrastination more so comes in, then that window is opportunity for me to go and have like that spoonful of peanut butter in between client calls. That
Mm-hmm.
starts to creep in. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to be guarded. I have to continue to journal, and be very aware that I can let those moments creep in. And then also when I become overly stressed, when I have made my schedule so packed full that it makes me feel like I have anxiety,
Right.
then allowing myself to be able to be like, oh well, forget this. I'm not cooking tonight. We're gonna go
Mm-hmm.
and out to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm not. That doesn't mean that I'm going to non keto. Like
Right.
I'm
Right.
ketoing, but I'm making excuses. I'm letting
Yeah.
other things creep in. So I have to be in a balanced state,
Mm-hmm.
and guarded to not let that stuff
Yeah.
bother me.
Right. Right.
How about
And
you?
this is the point that sometimes, we wholeheartedly support mental health, and there's
Yes.
sometimes that we may get to a spot in our journey that we're like, oh, I know the signs of when do I need to bring in a professional. Maybe I need to bring in the mental health counselor. Maybe it's something that I can white knuckle it through, but maybe it's something that I can't, and that's okay. And being honest with yourself enough to know that I can handle this or I can't handle this. So you can totally make it. And here's the other thing too: the things that triggered us when we first started are different than what triggers us now.
Yeah.
My watch signs right now are a whole lot different than they were at the beginning, because at the beginning of the process, I was, I was very strict. You eat this, you don't eat this. As we get towards maintenance and we kind of relax a little bit, sometimes we got to tighten that stuff up a bit.
Yes.
And the emotional eating hits us in completely different ways. So that's our show today, folks. We understand the importance of emotional eating. Once we get a hold of this and we are mindful eaters, we know the signs and we're honest with ourselves, it is completely possible to be free and live in peace and harmony with our new
Right.
selves
Yeah.
without that nagging emotional eating factor.
It's going
And
to take work.
it is a lot of
It
work.
is going to take a lot of work. So don't think that because you are saying, "Oh, I'm an emotional eater," and you've
Yeah.
discovered that, it's that you've solved the problem. Well, no,
Yeah.
now you got to work on it.
Yeah. It is a lot of work. So
Yeah.
we are here for you. If you need anything, please see the show notes in the each podcast wherever you're watching this. We're going to leave our contact information. If you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out. Coach Darcy's link is in the notes. My link is in the notes, and we're here to walk you through your journey to healing. So we will see you next week. So good to see you guys. Please give us feedback if you wouldn't mind. We would love for you to leave us a review in the podcast choice, wherever you're listening to. Like, share, whatever we do for these podcast things, it really helps us to get our message out to the masses.
Yes.
We'll see you next week, guys.